There's certain folks that I'm tremendously envious of. And my next guest, I am because he's got the coolest hair and I have hair envy. And he can also hit the thing a ton. And it's world long driving champion, 4-time world long driving champion, Kyle Berkshire. How are you, man? Thanks for joining us on the show.
No, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I've watched some of your shows like with Dr. Rotella
Uh-huh.
and a few of the other guests, so it's cool to be on.
Well, it's a thrill to have you on. Okay, I got to ask you, man, because I don't drive the ball very long. I read here that you hit a tee shot that went 579. Get this, 0.63 yards. Someone was
hmm
measuring. That's a
Yeah,
that's a par five, big eye. You've driven it a par five. Tell me about it.
yeah. We actually had a land surveying crew there. That's why we got such a precise measurement because we
All right.
wanted, like my biggest concern for the video we were filming was that people would be calling BS on it. So,
Mm-hmm.
I had actual land surveyors where they put the little poles in to measure the actual longitudinal distance, and that's what it came out to. But yeah, I was at Rochelle Ranch in Rawlins, Wyoming,
Okay.
um, about 7,000 feet of elevation,
All right.
and had some good winds. But it's always annoying to me because people instantly when they watch this video, the first thing they have to say is, oh, it was windy, or oh, he's at elevation. But no one ever mentions the fact that it was 50 degrees outside and it was not downhill at all.
Okay. Wait.
So, I mean,
Wait. I need to say this because I'm a career golf teacher who's like turned to broadcast. And
mhm,
I don't care what you say, what people say about wins and stuff like that. I call the best when they're at their best on weekends for CBS. And I see some tee shots hit that I have to go like, holy cow. I mean, this thing's launched. It's like 320, 330. You've doubled that. I nearly said shit. You've doubled that stuff up, man. I, it astounds me that the haters would still say things like that.
well, there's just a lot of miserable people out there that
Mhm.
don't really have anything else to do with their lives. And, that's been a big thing for me, like adjusting to that because I grew up as a kid. I was a really good golfer. I was
Mhm.
like on that level where I was good enough to get a lot of praise, but not quite good enough for people to start having something else to say. So like not like a top 10 golfer in the country, but I was in the top 100
Mhm.
in my graduating class pretty much my entire career. So I never had to deal with a lot of dissenting opinions. So that was something I've had to kind of adjust to
Mhm.
because the reality is when you hit it further than everybody else, especially for men, there's an instant reflexive ego hit. And a lot of people feel the need because of their own insecurities to instantly compensate to make themselves feel better. And that is where you get those comments about, the short game and all those other things. And I mean, listen, I people can say all they want, but I've had a lot of people, say a lot about playing golf against me, and I'm always happy to play matches against anybody and see where the chips fall.
Well, okay, before I introduce you, I mean, everyone knows who you are, but I still want to get the backstory behind how you got to where you are. But first, to put this all into context, you did the coolest post that is when I reached out to you the first time because I thought this was super cool. And if folks haven't seen it, go search for Kyle on Instagram, where you said, and I paraphrase, so correct me if I'm wrong. You go average clubhead speed with a driver on tour is 115 mile an hour or something like that.
hmm
Like I'm going to swing faster than that with every club in my bag from lob wedge through driver. And you did. And I was like, this is insane, but cool. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a video idea I always had. I knew it was something I could do. And I felt like because like my cruising speed when I play golf with my stock shot, I can get all the way down to probably like my 9 iron, 8 iron before it starts to go under driver average. But I knew, if I gave it a little extra with my wedges, I could probably get all of my clubs over 120 actually,
Are you
if I
serious?
really. Oh yeah, like I mean, my lob wedge was 118, and I probably could have pushed it a few more miles an hour. But yeah, it was just kind of a video idea I've always wanted to do, and my crew was there, and so we just fired it off real quick. And
If I didn't like you, I'd be so pissed off at you right now because like I got to run up to get my driver to about 104, and here's you with a lob wedge at 118.
well, one of the coolest things that came from that actually, I was at the Grove 23, and Justin Thomas was on the range with me, and he comes up and shows me a text from Tiger Woods
Yeah.
sending him that post saying that that was insane. And I've never gotten the pleasure to meet Tiger. I've kind of seen him, up close, but but it's been in positions where he's got a lot going on. So I never would want to bother him, when he's in the middle of doing what he's doing. So it was really cool to know that, like, even, one of the greatest of all time, he's watched my stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really cool thing to, have a place in the game, that people know you for.
Yeah. Well, look, power is intoxicating. We all are, no matter how good you are at the game, power is intoxicating. And the best players will talk about their chase after speed. And like yesterday, I did a corporate outing and there was a bunch of celebrities. And the one guy, and so there's Atlanta Falcons there, there's guys from the Hawks, there's like big time athletes. And I was playing alongside this guy, Ryan, who can move it. He's a Corn Ferry player and probably hits like 340. And he had one tee shot. And the next thing, these people are gathering around because power is intoxicating. So I say that to preface because we're going to share some tips for folks to hit it longer. But first, you talk about being a good player in high school and such, right? How did the whole long driving thing come about? Clearly, you must have been long. Where was this pivoting point to make it a career?
Well, the funny thing about it is I was really not interested in long drive at all. I'd known about it for a very long time. The first time I watched it, it was the 2013 World Championships when Tim Burke won at the Motor Speedway,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched it live, and it was kind of cool. And that was when I was, I want to say, a sophomore or junior in high school. But again, it's funny because I have a frame of reference I think that most people have for the sport, is that it was something I was aware of but didn't really pay attention to. And I would, once in a while, I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool." So I know exactly how a lot of people see this sport and their kind of stream of consciousness and awareness with where the sport is in the game. So it's been weird to have that side of it where I'm a casual viewer like most people, and then to obviously kind of be thrown into the deep end in the middle of it. But I ended up my speed was at low 180s ball speed when I went into college to play golf.
So you were
And
naturally fast anyway, of course.
well, I was the shortest hitter in my group of friends until I was
Oh.
about 14 or 15 because they all started growing
Mhm.
and I didn't for a while. But what happened was I was determined to stay with them. So I would inadvertently speed train on the range to
Okay.
try to keep up with them because they were growing, I wasn't.
Hmm.
And what really helped was between the ages of about 12 and 14, I grew maybe a couple inches and everybody else grew like 8 to 10 inches, but I was staying very close to their distance, even though they're way bigger. And then once I grew, I had a very speed efficient swing.
Yeah.
So as I got bigger and stronger, the speed accelerated. Um, but I kind of flattened lined around like 185, 186. I was long,
Hmm.
but then when I played college golf for University of North Texas. So you might know Sebastian Munoz,
Yeah.
Carlos
Mhm. Yeah.
Ortiz, those guys. Maybe even Thomas Rosemuller. He was a
Mhm. Yeah.
rookie on the PGA Tour. He was my roommate. But we were at this qualifying. We were doing qualifying for practice for a tournament, and it was at Lantana Golf Club near Dallas,
Okay.
Texas. And
Uh-huh.
it's I don't know if many people know Lantana, but it's a solid track. And the 17th hole is a straightaway par five. And I remember, on the putting green, I knew the direction of the wind, and I knew 17 would be downwind, and I had it in my head that I'm just gonna rip it as hard as I can just to do it
Okay.
because at this point I was starting to build a lot of speed,
Hmm.
and we actually, as it were, we had tutoring that afternoon. So we actually had all three groups join up to play 17, 18 together. So a
Yeah.
couple guys in the last groups were playing slower than expected because the course was pretty jammed. So
Hmm.
they played up with us so they could make it to tutoring in time. So we had all nine team members on site on the 17 tee box. And I just
Sorry.
absolutely smoked it.
Right.
And I drove everybody by, I mean, probably 80 yards.
There.
And I remember it being one of the hardest balls I'd ever hit. And that was kind of the first point in which everybody realized that I was a little special when it came to distance.
Hmm.
And then from then that was really where I was pushed. What really kind of solidified it was like I was sitting in the mid 200s
Yeah.
in competition and with a play driver, playing golf.
Hmm.
And so from there, I did a qualifier in California, just to kind of, see what it was like. And I still really wasn't that interested.
This is
I
the long
really, my,
driving qualifier.
Yeah, yeah. It was at Yucca Valley in 20 this was March 2017.
Hmm.
And just to give you a timeline, I came into college in August of 2015. So this was freshman year and then the first semester of my sophomore year. This is kind of the timeline of it. And I hit a drive 474 yards and pretty much blew everybody away. And that was qualified for Worlds. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do Worlds too. And I still, in my mind, really felt like I was going to be coming back for my junior year
Okay.
because I really, really, really had my heart set on playing professionally.
Hmm.
So that had been my dream since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went to Worlds, not really thinking too much about it. I packed a couple changes of clothes. It's a 7-day tournament. I thought maybe I could. I knew I'd be competitive early on, but I felt like I'd probably get knocked out around like the round of 64, the round of 32. But just kept making it through rounds, one round at a time. And before I knew it, I actually beat Justin James in a double elimination. He was the guy who ended up winning it in 2017.
Yeah.
So he was an absolute monster during that tournament. And I just kept hitting balls in play. And next thing I knew, the round of 16, I see the golf logo under the round of 16. And then I'm like,
You're on TV. Mm.
yeah, I won't say what I said, but I was like, that's when it hit me. Like, I was honestly in my mind thinking we had one more round, and then, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd never been on TV. I've always been this introverted kid.
Yeah.
And now I was going to be on live sports television competing in an athletic sport. Like it hit me so hard. And, that was kind of when I realized, it'd be a fun career path. But to be honest, like I always saw a long drive as a means to like giving me more time to play high level golf, if that made sense. So like a lot of guys when they try to make it in pro golf, there's always this timer in the back of your head, where if you can't get a certain amount of status by a certain age, you really start evaluating things.
Yeah.
And what long drive has given me is an almost unlimited timer because I make a living in the game with my YouTube channel and appearances and stuff. And so it's really been cool to do both, and to see how good I can get at both.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a super cool story. I want to ask this because, like, I'm fascinated with long driving. I'm a teacher deep down, and so the leverage and the dynamics of what you guys do is really cool to dive into. So you hook up with Bobby Peterson, who's like an expert in it. Bernie Najar has always been there as a mentor and a coach.
Hmm.
Um, but as I watch long drivers, Kyle, I see guys that just look big, strong, muscular, and their swings are somewhat ungainly. And you can see all they're trying to do is just bust the thing as hard as they can.
Hmm.
You make a golf swing that's really easy on the eye as well. And I'm astounded at how you generate the speed that you do, given I guess what the question I'm getting to is the levers that you build with a good looking golf swing and you hit the thing still so far.
Yeah, I would say there's obviously a component to it where there's a little bit of a gift in there, but I would also say that one of the most important things I've been able to do to build a ton of speed while maintaining efficiency and also consistency is I the lever that really matters when it comes to the turn and the swing isn't what people think. They immediately go to how far back the shaft is. That's what they determine, like you got Long John Daly and all that. But if you look really closely at guys who take the club back really far,
Mm-hmm.
the lever to pay attention to is not the club, it's the lead arm, specifically from the shoulder to the elbow joint.
Okay.
You want to pay attention how far that shoulder joint is turning under the chin. That will tell you how far of a turn someone's making.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason if you look at my swing, I barely go past parallel, but
Yeah.
I create all the speed. How do I do it? It's because the elbow joint to the shoulder joint, the turn I make on my lead arm, the where you turn your shoulder under your chin,
Mm-hmm.
that turn is bigger than anybody else in the world, and I don't break my wrists. So a lot of guys will break both their elbow and their wrist, which causes the club to go past perpendicular,
Narrow, yeah.
and it creates a longer plane of motion, which gives the club more time to move offline. It gives it more time to mishit it, more time to be delivered in off timing. And what I've been able to do is basically maximize the levers that actually matter and minimize any exaggeration of movement beyond that.
You know what? I love that because for every golfer, no matter their skill station, who's watching this, and they golf is a game of distance and direction. Now, so is yours because you could hit it 600 and miss the grid a few times and not win.
Yeah.
Um, but you do such a beautiful job of getting the club back in front of you, which is the challenge. And so many golfers, they get the club behind them and then they can never get the face back to where it belongs. And they might be going fast, but they are littering golf courses with golf shots.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to us a little bit. I'm guessing it's an educated guess that because of where you have the left arm relative to your shoulder, how it's easier for you to get the club back down in front of you. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, in long drive, like my peak speed is faster than everybody else's peak speed, but by by this much.
Okay,
But my average, oops, sorry about that.
no problem.
But my average speed, club speed is by that much.
Hmm.
I mean, sorry, ball speed. And that is, as I said, as a result of being able to keep that club more in front of me, but still have the levers created to create the angles to accelerate that club face without any unnecessary, I guess, movement beyond the plane of motion that I need, which is just turning that shoulder and elbow joint as far as I can.
You shared the gold there because I can't tell you how many folks will say, "Yeah, man, my club head speed, I got it up to like 110," and then they're not seeing the commensurate change in the distance of the golf ball because it is
Yeah.
about the ball speed.
It
Um,
is, and it's not just the ball speed, it's the quality of the strike.
mhm.
There's a lot of, I mean, I can promise you, like, my fastest ball speeds probably went nowhere because they were into, like, when I do speed pushing and I'm trying to push for max ball speeds, which is, an important part of building up a speed reserve where you can cruise at a higher club head speed and ball speed. But there's snap hooks into a net because I'm trying to get everything turning as hard as I can. And
Gotcha.
some of those balls went 100 yards,
Okay.
but like, so it's not just about ball speed, it's also about hitting the ball correctly given the conditions. So there might be a shot I'm trying to hit, say downwind, where the necessary launch angle would be 18 degrees with 3,000 RPM of spin at 225 ball speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning, it could be 15 miles into the wind, and I want to launch at 7 degrees with 1,500 spin. And it's not just that. I'm going to want to hit it more on the toe so the ball doesn't ride up into the wind as much. And if it's a tailwind, I'm going to want to hit it higher in the heel so there's a little more spin.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it, the ball speed is critical, and it is my biggest weapon, knowing that I will be faster than everybody else in every tournament I compete in by at least 8 miles an hour. But what really helps me in long drive is my golf background. I know how to hit a golf ball, and
Yeah.
I know how to make a golf ball do different things. And it allows me to be very versatile as conditions change. And especially under pressure, I feel like I can call in a lot more feel and repeatability, when you really are in high stress situations where the tournament is decided. That's where I notice the separation the most when I get to the final eight. So I really always seem to put my best out there because I've just swung a golf club since I was 3 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just have it ingrained so deep into my muscle memory that even under high stress situations, it comes out, more often than not.
This is off the subject, but I want to ask you because as you were talking about hitting the ball intentionally on the toe and the heel, I'm like, this guy sounds like Jack Nicklaus to me. But anyhow, it made me wonder because I speak to some guys on the tour who are long, and they carry backup drivers with them because of face cracking. How many
Mm-hmm.
club faces do you crack in a season, bro?
Well, it depends. So my highest 2021 Worlds with Bryson, we showed up with 20 drivers between the two of us. Bryson went through one. I went through 18, and there was going into the finals, there was one left that was new. Um, and I actually didn't. I kept the one I'd hit in the quarter in the semifinals. It was a little flat, but it was really hot. So
Yeah,
my rationale was I wanted to go in with a driver I knew one good hit would in the tournament,
it's gonna.
and because the head was a little faster,
Mhm.
I'd get a little more ball speed, a little more distance. But a lot of it is I very rarely actually crack a head. What will happen is the head will flatten
Okay.
to where the bulge and roll. Bryce started talking about this. We've known about this in long drive for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Where the face, so there's bulge and roll in a face. For those who don't know, so that's what gear effect is. When you hit it on the heel and it cuts back, if you hit a draw with hitting on the toe, that's a built-in effect of the driver because it gives you more stability in distance for mishits.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start losing that bulge and roll, well, guess what? You better hit it perfect, or that ball is not going to go straight. If you hit it high in the face, it's probably going to dovetail because if you think about it, it's like a concave shape.
Yeah.
So just think of a spoon, and this outward part of that spoon. If you hit it high in the face, it's going to not have spin. If you
Mm-hmm.
hit it low in the face, it's going to spin a ton because what you've effectively done by flattening that club is change the loft of the club in all kinds of different parts of that face.
Crazy.
And that's why it becomes such a problem, is because everything we do is about managing our dynamic loft.
Okay.
Dynamic loft is everything because it determines how the ball flies and how it spins. And if we have a super flat head, we might have 8 or 9 degrees of loft in one part of the face and 1 degree of loft in the other part. So
Hmm.
it gets impossible to hit consistent shots.
Yeah.
So I will always favor a slower head that is got bulge and roll over a faster head. The only exception being what I outlined. If I'm literally in the finals or deep in a tournament against a really good hitter where I need to exploit my speed advantage, that might change opinions, but 99% of the time, that's how I do it. And that's the one thing I feel like a lot of people listening can take away
Mm-hmm.
is if you want to hit the ball far, ball speed and club speed are important, but it does not hurt to start paying attention to things like dynamic loft, spin rate,
Yeah.
launch angle, landing angle,
Mm-hmm.
because those things determine a heck of a lot. And then if you can focus on that, get efficient with those numbers, and then you're ready to start building speed. Because that's when speed starts to matter. So if you're efficient with your numbers to begin with.
That is a really salient point, and I want to build on that, and I want to bring up Bryson too because he's been on the show and spoke of you. Um, like let's take ground reaction force, right? And to me, you're the expert at the thing with the way you move before you got to hit a hard one. Um, but people will be like, I see folks bouncing all over the show, and they're just hitting the ball all over the joint in the interest of getting faster, where they would be better served, to your observation, to hit the thing properly, squarely, get the ball spinning appropriately, because then golf is about aerodynamics. And if you get the ball flying better, it's going to go more efficiently. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my recommendation to people listening would be a good rule of thumb. You should, if let's just say sea level, you go to any TrackMan bay and normalize it for this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not hitting it 2.5 yards, if you're not, if take your club speed in miles an hour, multiply it by 2.5. If you're not hitting that target yardage, so if you're 100 miles an hour club speed, if you're not hitting at 250 in normalized normal conditions in TrackMan, then you should probably focus on enhancing your launch characteristics and dynamics first, maximizing those out before you should start chasing speed. But the second you do that, the second you hit 250, you better start chasing speed because there's only so much you can do once you max things out before you do have to start creating more force.
Yeah.
And the beauty about speed training is really simple.
Mm-hmm.
Start off, I would say 20 to 30 balls, 2 to 3 times a week, as hard as you possibly can, no regard to where it goes. And this is again, assuming you've been optimizing your distance already. So you got a good swing, you know what you're doing. All right, now it's time to build some speed. So you can do that. And then if you choose, you can also implement a lifting program. And I'm not super specific on it and picky. I just would recommend high like compound movements and really challenging your body and then rest and recovery. Those things will really maximize your speed gains. But what people love hearing, so they don't need to go to the gym to do it and they don't need to change their swings. So you just won't get as pronounced results.
Yeah.
But I've experienced both. So I had my first speed jump without the gym when I was in 13, 14, 15 years old. And then I literally had my speed plateau for about a year and a half, and then I started lifting in college, and that's when my speed jumped again. So I'm living testament to both sides of that, and you can really accelerate it if you decide to do both, but you can just do one or the other, and you'll see results as well.
You've brought up another question. Man, you're making some fantastic points. Look, we live in the era of speed. And so there's the cottage industry now that are coming out with these speed training devices. You got Ripstick, you got Speed Stick, you got Stack System. And I I look upon these things, I'm like, these are all good because at least it's getting people moving.
Hmm.
But if not used properly, this is not really the best deal. And I see people swinging back and forth, and you're sound and you seeing speed increases and stuff, but it's like they're not making golf swings. Does
Yeah.
that make sense to you? And then I fear injury. What is your take on those sorts of things?
Well, what I can tell you is that let's just take the last 10 years. When I was 18 years old, I swung 122 miles an hour. I'm 28 now and I swing about, let's just say 162.
Okay.
And I've gained 40 miles an hour over the last 10 years. And I've gained speed every year except for COVID because I was doing a lot of YouTube at that point because Long Drive shut down for the year. But I've never used any kind of speed training device, not once.
Until someone listens to
I
this podcast and pays you to use one.
No, I've been offered money.
Okay.
I don't endorse things that I don't believe in.
Okay.
There's a lot of endorsements I've left on the table because I don't believe that it represents the best interests of my audience. And it's not something I can personally endorse.
Hmm.
Um, because I've been offered numerous companies speed sticks. Obviously, I'd be a pretty attractive brand representative, but that's not how I gain my speed. So I'm not interested in being disingenuous with what I've done. I'd rather just tell people the basics, which is people don't like to hear it sometimes. They want to hear a swing tip. They want to get a device that's going to make it faster. It's just not true. You will get faster, but you're not going to be faster sustainably and consistently in 1 week. But if you do 3 speed sessions a week, and if you really want to push the envelope, do 3 to 4 gym sessions on your off days from speed sessions,
Hmm.
and you recover and eat properly, I guarantee you, literally, it's almost impossible if you're doing it right that you won't see at least a couple percentage points of speed increase after, say, 3 or 4 months. And
And I want to do this. Let's put it into context because not everyone's Kyle Berkshire. And here's the teacher in me coming out. It's a humor in me for a minute. Your average Joe, let's call him Mark. If I do like Kyle Berkshire said, because God forbid I'm gonna, right? If I pick up 5 or 6 miles an hour, that's a pretty good pickup.
absolutely,
Correct. Yes. Let's put things into context because then people are like, well, I've gained 3 miles an hour, but man, I'm not doing well enough. But that's a big deal.
it's a huge deal. I mean, if you think about it like this, say 3 yards, that's half a club less. That could be if you had to smoke a 5 iron in that par three you play all the time in your home club. You might notice now, hey, I mishit that 5 iron a little bit, still made it to the green.
Yeah.
And when I catch it properly, just making a controlled swing, it's getting all the way to pin high. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I'll give you a case study. So I do have an entire comprehensive idea of an ultimate speed program. I just haven't really had the time to put it together, but I've put a few people through my idea of it. Bryson being one, Bernie Ajar, my coach being the other. And I know you know him quite well. And when we first got together, he's been my coach for 15 years. But when I started really doing speed, he had never swung over 110 miles an hour in his life. And I'm talking even when he was in his early 30s, when the launch monitor era came around, he knew he would never have been over 110. We got him to 121 before his
I
50th
know.
birthday.
You told me about this the other day, and I didn't believe him. I didn't.
Well, and here's the beauty of it is you actually it's almost like he went through puberty again because when you're growing as a kid, seems like every summer you're hitting a little further.
Mhm.
There's a new landmark on a golf hole that you're able to hit it past.
Yeah.
And he had that experience from the age of 47. He was 103, 104 at the age of 47. He dropped even more. He peaked at about 107, 108 in his mid 30s. Maybe he was a fraction faster, but didn't have launch monitor data.
Hmm.
But he'd steadily dropped like a lot of people do when they get into their 40s. And he was about 102, 103, barely hanging on to triple digits. And
Sounds like
we
me.
started. Well, it's a lot of people. It's very common because
Yeah.
it's normal.
Hmm.
It's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And that's what humans do when they don't have a specific interventionary moment where they change their course. People will always do the path of least resistance. That's just how we're wired and built. So, Bernie, we talked about it and, I put him through some stuff because to be honest, even at that point, this was 2020. So I was pretty confident in this stuff, but I hadn't proven it yet. I only had myself to look back at. So I put him through the same stuff and lo and behold, I mean, he picked up about 3 or 4 miles an hour every year. And, he has like a brother he played with, and, he was swinging 110, 112 in the course, and his brother couldn't believe it. Like he was past his brother. And Bernie, you could see how excited it made him because the game was more fun for him. He's able to move back 2 boxes at Caves Valley.
Hmm.
And, it got to a point at its peak. He's a little bit, he's kind of back down to like 111, 112, but we'll get him back up there. But at his peak, he was swinging about 115, 116 on the golf course and playing with that speed. He had control and he had the ability to maximize that ball speed and made him way better because the short game is great.
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, it's like you said it earlier. It's way easier to hit a 9 iron on the green than a 6 iron. No, I don't
It
care.
is, and you have more options if you have speed,
Yeah.
and that's actually been interesting for me too, because like, we've been really focusing, we've been slowly building it over the last 3 years. We kind of started talking about at the end of 2022 what a potential run at high level golf would look like for me.
Hmm.
And we just steadily put in blocks each year. And what we're finding out is speed is a huge advantage. But if you don't absolutely know what you're doing with it and know when to deploy it, it's like artillery. If you're going to use artillery, you better know exactly where your troops are so you don't bomb your own troops.
That's true.
And that's the way I kind of look at it, is like speed is extremely powerful and devastating if used properly,
Hmm.
but you need to know when to use it and know how to use it and also know what shots to choose and when to choose them. Speed just gives you an insane amount of options on the golf course.
Yeah.
And, working Bernie through it and myself, when you get that speed, that is the biggest challenge.
Everybody within earshot or watching this on YouTube wants me to ask you the question, so let us into the system, but I'm not going to. We can tease them. I'm going to say this, though. What you say brings me back to Bryson because I was one of the last guys who interviewed him in Las Vegas after he won in the fall. And he promised us, he's like, when you see me again, I'm going to be a different guy. And lo and behold, he was. He went from
Hmm.
a well built guy to just like gigantor. And he just hit the ball hard because he was heavy. It was like force equals mass and acceleration. And there was movement
Hmm.
all over the show. And it was unhealthy too. I mean, he was getting himself sick and stuff like that. Then he connects with
Yeah.
Kyle Berkshire, and you say to him, "No, bro, this is not how you do it." Now I call Bryson in 2025 at the PGA Championship, lean, efficient, hitting it a long way, not swinging like a wild man all the time. Got the gear if he needs to, and the golf swing has changed too. It's not just like a lurch. The thing is accelerating in the right spots.
It
So
is.
Bryson talked about it, but please share with the folks what you told Bryson DeChambeau.
Well, the thing was, I'd known him actually during that. I kind of, he gained weight so fast, I almost blinked and there was 30 pounds on him. I think
Ooh.
he was, I remember him weighing low 250s, I think, at his peak.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I really, it was two things. I wanted to tell him in the nicest way possible. It was counterproductive, but I also really was impressed with how committed he was to improving. Because in his mind, that was improvement. But the problem with putting on so much weight is it restricts mobility and it hampers the joints. It
Mm-hmm.
opens you to injury and it just is unnecessary. It won't by itself prevent you from gaining speed. It's just extremely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Gaining some weight in most cases is the way to go, but I don't recommend a rate of gain of any more than a pound a month, maximum 2 pounds a month. Because if you're a natural lifter and a natural athlete, even if you're just starting out and you have newbie gains, because you gain muscle faster at the beginning of your lifting career than your the end of your lifting career as you reach your maximum genetic potential.
Mm-hmm.
Even at your very beginning of your lifting career, assuming you've never touched the gym and you're going to do everything perfect with speed training and lifting weights, you will not be able to gain more than absolutely most 2 pounds of muscle a month. And that is for just the first 6 to 8 months of your genetic freak. More likely, you'll gain about a pound a month of muscle. So he had a 4 month period where he gained about 10 pounds a month, which was, it was just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could see the inflammation. And, I always knew he would quickly realize it was best to downsize. So luckily, I never really had to tell him. He kind of figured it out on his own. And I was glad he did, for his health. I
Yeah.
mean, because I don't want to say I was ever worried about him. It wasn't like that, but it was definitely something that he figured it out, and now he's in a great place because there's this thing in bodybuilding called muscle maturity, and it's where bodybuilders who've been building muscle and have had it for a long time, the muscle gets grainier, gets denser. You see more veins, even though there's technically not more muscle there. And it's Bryson. You just talked about it. How his swing is now smoother, but still just as fast and efficient. We got what I call speed maturity. That's where the motor neurons have gotten so used to firing at the speed, they've gotten so much more smooth and efficient. When you are first gaining the speed, it's very common to have shaft snap on your back because your deceleration muscles aren't strong enough to slow that shaft down before it hits your back. It's also very common to look a lot more lurchy and, for lack of a better term, not as graceful.
Yeah.
It takes about a year or two for that to kind of smooth out. But the whole process, it's about a 3 to 5 year process. And I mean, I can pretty much guarantee if you're a healthy adult male, it would really be hard for me to imagine a world, say, if you pursued this between the ages of like 18 and 32 in a 5 year period, if you did most things right and stayed patient, I would really have a hard time imagining a world where there wouldn't be a single adult male who is normally built and healthy who wouldn't swing at least 120 after all that.
Really? Huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, last two things, then I'm gonna let you go. Um, the one thing, Bryson, it seemed like it was a takeaway from your counsel, was he talked about width. And then I
Hmm.
said, yeah, kind of like Talladega versus Bristol Speedway. And he goes, exactly that. You know what it gets like, right? And it's like you bred in him this idea of big and wide and give the clubhead more time to accelerate. Talk about that a second, please.
Yeah, like one of the biggest things I kind of would talk to Bryson about, the biggest thing he had issues with, especially going into Worlds, and he really, really wanted to try to win that tournament.
Hmm.
He would get to the top of the swing and he wouldn't let the club fully set because, again, he's making a bigger swing now. So he's got to give himself more time at the top. And he still to this day does this with his golf swing. He knows that if he starts hitting it left, that face is shutting too soon. That means that he's not finishing his swing
Okay.
and he's swinging shorter and the club is shutting quicker.
Hmm.
So the biggest thing for him is staying patient at the top and then letting those wrists naturally set so that they're ready to snap and accelerate through the impact zone. I actually struggle with that too. I have to really be patient with myself at the top of the swing as well. And so it's a pretty common thing, especially if you gain a lot of speed. Your swing is going to be longer than it used to been. Your takeaway will sometimes be a little quicker, but that also means it's a little harder to deliberately be patient at the top
Yeah.
because the takeaway is quicker. So then you want to swing through quicker.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing we really had to work on. Everything else Bryson had. I mean, he was ready to compete. He had the ball flight. He had enough speed. He wasn't the fastest, but he had enough speed to beat a lot of the top guys. And
And he's accurate.
yes, and
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely. But it's crazy because like no one's immune to OB sets in long drive, and he was by far the most accurate guy, I think, at the tournament. But it was crazy. I think he had one OB set, but it goes to show how hard it can be to hit that grid when you get the adrenaline flowing and you're really ripping it.
Hmm.
But, for him to come in and do what he did, finishing top 8 in 2 world championships, it's pretty impressive. And, now it honestly gives me the sense of duty that now it's my turn to return the favor in high level golf.
All right.
And so I'm excited to see how next year comes out because I've started playing pretty good the back half of the summer. And so it's a process, but I'm kind of going through that same thing now that I put Bryson through in long drive. I'm kind of going through that same thing myself now in golf.
Well, it'd be a
So
thrill.
it's interesting.
It'd be a thrill for me to call you in one of the PGA Tour event. Okay, last thing, I touched on it earlier. Um, and I do want to say this when you talk about the patience at the top of the swing. We've got a cadre of golf instructors now that are diligent about saying, well, you've got to have your wrist in this amount of flexion at the top. Well, you guys get to the top and that thing just flows. It's not like you're trying to hold anything back. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to that, in terms of the holding back, the one thing I love about your golf swing, people would be best served if they tried it, in my opinion, is how you move between left and right foot. It looks like a trigger to
Hmm.
me, but it also seems like it just sets everything in well-timed motion. Talk about the move and sort of how this came about, please.
Yeah, so my first 2 years in long drive, in the preface this, my before I went into long drive, I would have like a tiny trigger, kind of like Justin Thomas, where my thumb would kind of like tap the grip before I
Okay.
took it back.
Hmm.
I'm sure people maybe they don't realize that he does that, but if you look, you'll
Yeah.
see that thumb move up and down. So that was kind of my trigger. And then the first 2 years of long drive, I really didn't have a trigger. I was very, as I said, herky jerky, but it's normal for that phase in speed. I broke a ton of shafts in my back. It was very ugly. And then in 2019, I started kind of experimenting with moving my weight forward so that I could get it all in one spot. And then that way, when I took the club back, my weight would shift onto my trail leg more effortlessly.
Hmm.
And if you look throughout 2019, I think you'd be really fascinated. Look at some of the earlier events in the long drive season. You'll see barely my feet shuffling, but you can see it a little bit.
Right.
And then if you go to the 2019 World Championships, you can see that full blown rock that I'm sure a lot of people, I was known for before I switched away from it. But
Mm.
you can see the progression throughout the season of it getting more and more significant. And that was just my body, because I'm trying to hit further and further, my body was slowly getting more and more adept at being able to take those feet higher and higher to draw more and more speed without falling off balance. Now, since then, what I've shifted to is kind of a abbreviated version of that. Because what I didn't like was in the off season of 2019, it really started to get kind of crazy and just felt unsustainable.
Hmm.
So then if you look now at my swing, I have a little rock where my I'll shift forward, but I won't lift my feet,
Yeah.
and then I shift back. And what that does, it's a much more sustainable thing that I could see myself doing for the rest of my career. Is I don't have to lift my feet up. But what it does, it's getting my weight in one place so that I can have a much more consistent displacement of my weight at the top of my swing
Hmm.
and a much more efficient placement of my weight for max power. So the more that you shift your weight, the more that weight you can drive into the swing. And that's what I'm doing.
You know what? And I want to quickly pitch this at you, and then we'll wrap. When I'm giving lessons to most club golfers, and I try and have them, take a step and swing and take a step and swing, it's like they're swinging and then stepping. Yet when
Yeah.
they walk away from me, the feet will move first. Where so many folks, if they had to try and do what you do, where it's like, all right, move forward, then move back, and let your arms almost feel like they're following your body. They'll pick up some speed just doing that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really would be shocked if you actually had them do that stepping motion that they wouldn't gain speed because they're building momentum.
Yeah.
But more specifically, they're learning how to move better.
Mm,
That's what that does. It teaches them to move better, to create displacement of their weight in a way that allows the club head to accelerate. And that's what speed is all about. And that's what the whole point of speed is. It's not about blasting the ball all off the planet. The whole point of speed training and the speed revolution, and it's a very misunderstood thing. It's not about how fast you can swing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build sustainable, safe, healthy, and repeatable high speed swings that allow you to hit it further and in play where you have more options off the tee and more things you can do with the golf ball. And that's why it's such an important part of this game. It's not just swing hard and hope you hit the fairway. There's so much more to it.
yeah.
And I will go on the record saying that this is just the very beginning. And I know we have the golf ball rollback, which will probably slow ball speeds, but let's just assume we kept this golf ball. 10 years from now, the average ball speed on tour will be in the 180s, guaranteed. You take it to the bank,
Oh man,
period.
yeah, well, I'm seeing it happening before my eyes. Listen, you've been preaching, Reverend Berkshire, so thank you. I appreciate all the insight and the advice. Thanks for joining us. Please share for the folks who aren't aware for some reason where they can find you, YouTube channel, social media, and such.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, just my name, and Instagram is at Kyle Berkshire, and TikTok is at the Kyle Berkshire. Some other Kyle Berkshire beat me to that nickname, that username, but that's kind of where I am on my socials, and I try to update people with my competitive golf exploits and some matches. I actually have a match coming out in 2 days as of the recording of this video with
Mhm.
the European Ryder Cup captain, Luke Donald. So
Oh,
that's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, those are my socials. And, absolutely, I try to offer something of value to all you guys. And it's what it's all about, isn't it?
absolutely is. Godspeed. I appreciate you, my friend.
Absolutely. It was good talking to you, Mark. Take care.